Praveen sir? Praveen sir? Good evening, participants. I think we'll start with today's session. May I now invite Rahul from Alpha Universal Researchers Academy to formally invite our resource person for today, Dr. Praveen Sam.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, Rahul, you are very much audible.
Yeah, thank you. So once again, good evening, everyone who's present in this wonderful session. And once again, let me take immense pleasure of inviting the speaker for the day, Dr. Praveen Sam. So the credentials of our speaker is more and more. It was when I started exploring it, it was more like a notion for me. So I've tried my level best to probably summarize. I'll just try my best to summarize it. And Dr. Praveen Sam graduated is a UG and PG from St. Joseph College in University, and also Sarah has completed his PhD from Anna University. So Sarah has 13 years of teaching experience in ELT in various engineering institutions, including the Anna University. And Sarah has prepared him to be a very effective teacher from all his wonderful experiences that he owed. And his passion lies in the content development and developing asynchronous and synchronous e-learning platform, the material prediction, and English literature, and also about literary criticism. So Sir has published various books and on various topics, like he has published books on technical English, he has published books on design thinking, he has published books on communications skills, and so on and so forth. So, and also it was so interesting to see that Sarah's presented various journals in both international as well as the national level. And when I just went through, when I was just skimming through the works done by Sir, it was so interesting to know that Sir could expose two different sides of his personality. Sir is also a great anthropologist, because Sir has presented a very beautiful international journal, the situation analysis of migrant population residing in the flood-prone areas in Chennai. And also Sir has touched upon his literary work, the postmodern tone, and Salman Rushdie's The Mood's Last Sigh. So you could see a complete human skill, nature within Sir, and also to talk about the various conferences and seminars, presented by Sir. To name one of them, the impact of reading with strategies in engineering and technology education, in the International Conference on Right to English, organized by Amity University. And also, Sarah is presented in the national level a seminar on flipped classroom model, an effective platform for the natural approach of teaching English language to tertiary level engineering learners. So I'm sure today the speaker is an amazing personality and also a very resourceful person to engage each and every one of us for being here for the session. So, sir, without much delay, without taking much time, I invite you to take away the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for that generous introduction.
Thank you, sir.
But I have to shamelessly accept that was written by me. See, most of the time, no? Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for that introduction, sir. Thank you, Aruna, for
My
coordinating. Yeah. So, I mean, good evening, participants. It's already 6:35 now, so we'll jump into the presentation part. I know it's almost by the end of the day after working for the entire day. I don't know how much energy is left in each of us to listen to a presentation of this sort. So I'll try to keep it simple and maybe way you understand. So we'll start. I'll jump. Let me share my screen and start the presentation. So by the time the screen comes up, I request the audience to be a little interactive. I think they have the option, or you have the option of unmuting yourself.
Yes, so they can. They will be able to post their messages in the chat box.
Great. In that case, it's fine because there's no point to making a presentation kind of one-sided. Okay. As I was requesting, I want the audience to know. Whenever I'll be asking a lot of questions in the course of the session. Not difficult questions. Maybe I just want to know how you interpret that particular aspect. So you can always unmute and answer the questions. Hope my presentation is on the screen. No, can you confirm? No?
Yes, sir.
Great. So I've titled this presentation "Reading Comprehension Using Graphic Organisers, a Methodology." Okay, fine. The objectives that I have, it's 1 hour presentation, so I thought of taking these 4 objectives to discuss. To start with, let us understand our personal opinions on reading instruction. So reading, we all know that reading is a very important skill. The entire country and entire world talks about how reading is important for different purposes in our education as well as career. In spite of all those kind of information, still we see that there is a kind of gap in our students. So reading is not taken seriously. I don't know why, but yeah, the research says reading day by day, the importance that we attach towards reading is reducing. Anyway, let us see as teachers what we can do about it. Maybe that I think we'll get some idea in course of the presentation. The second objective is to discuss the different approaches to teaching. I think as teachers we'll have to understand. Yeah, we all teach reading. There's no doubt about it. We teach reading. I think there are certain approaches. I think we need to have this as a backdrop when we teach reading. I felt that is important, so let me touch upon those approaches. Then I'll move on to explore the different types of graphic organizers available. Basically, what graphic organizers are, and I'll talk about different types available and how it can be used in our classrooms. Then finally, I'll end the presentation after discussing benefits of using graphic organizers. So this is how I foresee the session. Maybe in course of the session, if there's any digression, maybe a positive digression, it's okay, no issues. As and when, see audience, when you feel like clarifying the question or maybe to add to the point what is being discussed, you're welcome. Yeah, so this is a model that I always use, or I will always refer to. I designed this for one of my studies, but it sounds kind of universal. No? Whenever I talk about these skills, I can use this particular image to talk how skills operate in us, or how we use skills. So I call this human factoring model of language skills. So we all know that LSRW.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So have you changed the slides, since it's in the title slide? Have you changed the slides?
Yeah, I did change. It's in the.
Sorry, sir. Can you just put it up on the slideshow because it still shows with the first slide? I think you can just click on from the current slide. Because
is it moving now?
Not yet, sir. It's still on the first slide.
What is wrong with that? Just a minute. Let me stop and
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Problem is, I'm in the campus still. Sometimes this campus they have problem with this Google Meet. Otherwise, Zoom Teams, everything works, but this Google Meet used to have problem. But they have sorted it out. But I don't know. Just a minute. Give me a minute.
Yes, sir.
No, can you see this slide on the screen?
1 minute, sir. It's just presenting. Yes, sir. Now, absolutely yes.
Okay. See
now
if
it's blank.
See if it's changing.
It's changing, but it's blank actually, sir. It's just a black screen.
Actually, what happened?
Objectives.
Is it showing now?
Now it's blank. I think there's some technical glitch. Maybe it's entirely. Now it's visible, sir. The objective. Okay, it's blank.
Anyway.
Okay.
What I'll do is I don't know. Quickly, I'll mail you the presentation.
Sure, sir.
Maybe. Yes.
You want me to drop in my email ID, sir?
Yeah, maybe on the chat.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Anu, I have sent the PowerPoint.
Sure, sir. I'll just check.
Yeah, can you share?
Yes, sir. You have sent just 1 minute, sir. I've still not received your mail.
Let's see. Yeah, it says sent.
Yes, sir. I'll just check. Let me see. Still not received, sir.
Let's see.
Yes, sir. I've received yours. 1 minute.
Anyway, I'm trying to share as well. We'll see what works.
I'll do it right away. I'll just share. So I'm just sharing my screen.
Yeah. So, participants, I'm sorry. I don't know what is happening. This is the first time I experienced this kind of problem.
It's okay, sir. That's perfectly fine. Happens for everybody.
It happens. Sir, is it okay?
Yeah, I can see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Anu, see, in certain slides I have this animation. If you don't see anything on the slide, just click one button. Or maybe
Okay,
one point,
sir. Sure,
one
sir.
point might appear. Yeah, that's how I
Sure, sir.
Yeah, you can move on.
Yeah.
I think we already discussed the objectives. Maybe show the objective page so the audience can see. Maybe I was under the impression that it was being shown when you
Okay.
only know it's visible. So very quickly, so these are the 4 objectives I have decided to discuss today with you all. Yes, Anu will move on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I was talking about this human factory model of language skills, I developed this for one of my studies. But I thought after that, I realized it is universal. I can use it whenever I talk about any skill. We all know this LSRW. That's how we call skills, and we have 2 more elements. Elements of any language is vocabulary and grammar. So anyway, I'm not considering vocabulary and grammar as far as this slide is concerned. So yeah, let me compare the skills with a factory model. Factory in the sense how the raw materials come from the factory and it gets processed, and the processed material goes out of the factory. So likewise, when information, if that comes into us, maybe when we encounter information, the moment the information is front of us, we use our reading and listening skills to process the information. So these 2 skills are called processing skills from a different perspective. Maybe once you process the information, and if you're ready with the output, which means the response, we use the speaking and writing discourse. They're called discourse skills or output skills, and maybe we call maybe a response skills. We use these 2 skills to respond our information. So this is how skill plays. Reading and listening are maybe they call receptive skills sometimes, but I think we need to elevate and call them processing skills. We use these 2 skills to process the information. I think I thought of discussing this because I want you to see reading from this point today. Maybe how reading is employed.
அக்கா வந்து நேற்று சேலம் போறதா சொல்லிட்டு சேலம் போனா வரமாட்டேன்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்க.
Participants, please
அப்போ
make
வந்து
sure.
காலேஜ்ல இருக்கானா ஃபர்ஸ்ட்ல வந்து லீவ்ல இருக்குன்னு சொன்னான்.
Participants,
லீவ்ல தான்
I
இருக்கா.
think he didn't know that his mic is on.
2 பேருமே எடுக்க மாட்டேங்கிற
One minute.
ஹஸ்பருக்கு போகவே மாட்டேங்குது. எனக்கு 2
participants, please, we request you to keep your mics turned off.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. So we'll move on. Move on to the next slide. Anu. Yeah. So the next very important thing is okay. How LS is different from RW. Listening and speaking are different from RW. So we all collectively see these 4 skills as language skills, whereas for the perspective, we need to classify them based on how it is learned. Listening and speaking, people say it's learned naturally. Maybe a child, we see children picking up a language, any language it would matter. Initially, they listen to the others speaking and they try to imitate, and they start speaking the language. So generally, initial stages of speaking or listening to a child is not taught, whereas it is inculcated. They do on their own. Whereas reading and writing are not so. Reading and writing always needs a systematic instruction. This is actually Emily Hansford. She discussed about this particular aspect of reading. So human brain is not naturally programmed to read, whereas listening and speaking brain can do. Reading is a kind of a skill which needs to be kind of instructed to the child or to the learners. That's how we are supposed to see reading. Reading is not naturally inculcated, whereas it's taught, systematically taught. This forms the base of science of language. Science of language discusses about how reading is learned or taught. So they demarcate very clearly that reading is a skill that needs to be systematically instructed to the learners. Anu, yes, next time. Anu, shall we move on? No, I think you've crossed many. Yeah. Next. Yeah, fine. Thank you, Anu. So this is a question I would like to put to all the. Maybe I don't know how the audience classification is. Maybe students or teachers or researchers. Now, maybe I think everybody can answer this question. I want you to answer this question from your point, your perspective. how do you teach reading? How do we teach reading? We all are teachers. I want people to unmute and answer this question from your point of view, from your experience, your understanding.
Yes, we'll straight away give any context and we'll ask them to read.
Yeah. So we'll ask students to read. We give them a
Yeah.
context and we ask students to read. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yes, Vijay, sir, you have something to say?
Yes, sir. So actually, sometimes we just focus on the soft skills of reading, like we just tell them about skimming and scanning. Focus on the other, reading skills per se, like the micro components of reading, and then we will just go to the larger parts from the micro to the macro.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Vijay, sir. Anybody else want to present your opinion on this? How do we teach reading? Okay, fine. Thank you, Navina ma'am and Vijay sir. What you said is absolutely true. We talk about all these strategies, but research says predominantly reading is, as far as reading is concerned, we only test and we don't teach. Because in the classroom, what we do, we go to the classroom and we give them a passage and we ask them to read. The moment you ask them to read, the skill is transferred. So they are practicing the skills. And we give a set of questions for them to answer after that, or maybe we teach them certain strategies. But reading is kind of a skill which is not only discussed by the English teachers. So I mean, there's an idea that every teacher is a reading teacher. For example, physics or chemistry or science generally, they all want students to read textbooks. So how do we English teachers differ from that? Maybe they write notes on the board, or they project notes on the screen, or they give textbooks for students to read. They read and they try to understand the information and they replicate the information to the teacher. So this is what is happening in any classroom. So how is a reading session different from that? So this is a very important research question that is asked these days, because now we are into a research spectrum that talks about collaborative reading instruction. So what will happen if a physics teacher, a maths teacher, and an English teacher teach in a classroom at the same time? Maybe this is what is being researched maybe globally now. Okay, since reading is beyond English borders, language borders. Every teacher, be it an engineering college or an arts and science college, a school, every teacher expects students to read. So they read. Of course, listening is also a similar skill, but reading, when you see from the teaching point of view how reading is taught, we all do this the same way. Be it an English teacher or any other teacher, we want students to read and comprehend. So this is how reading is predominantly taught. Anyway, Anu, next slide now. Yes, okay. So I was talking about this approaches to reading. I think this is where we need to understand these approaches. These approaches will help us to understand. So what we do in the class, maybe I have my own method of teaching, very good. I use my own strategies. Maybe I devise my own activities to teach. Everything is fine. But I think these approaches, I'm going to talk about 3 different approaches. This will always help us to understand what I'm doing in the class. To be very frank with all of us, sometimes in the reading class, we don't know what we're doing. We give them the material, they read. And what is the role of a teacher? So what are we doing there? This will always be a kind of question that we'll have to ask ourselves. So if we understand these approaches to reading, at least we know, okay, what is being done in a classroom. The first approach I would like to talk about is, yes, Devika ma'am, do you have something to say? Dr. N. Devika, yeah, I think by mistake she has unmuted. Anyway, the first approach I thought of discussing with you is called whole language approach. What is whole language approach? I think you can read what is given on the slides. Phonics. Phonics is not exactly whole language approach. Phonics is something contrary to a whole language approach. I thought to understand this approach, let us see what phonics is. Phonics generally refers to the way reading is taught, starting from pronouncing sounds, words, how words put together becomes a sentence. So that's how reading instruction starts as far as phonics approach is concerned, which I'll be talking after this. I have a reason why I talk this particular approach and then move on to phonics approach. So phonics, no, teachers who believe in phonics, they'll start teaching every letter, every sound, and how sounds combine to form words and how words combine to form sentences. I mean, this will be the basic instruction with which children start reading. So this is what is phonics. Maybe this whole language approach is against this particular idea. So they believe that people who believe a whole language approach, they believe that reading is not an activity which is to be taught. So it is against Henry's kind of research. They say reading, if a teacher tries to teach reading, it's a waste of time. It's a meaningless activity to teach reading, because reading is something which will automatically happen. It's a natural phenomena. Maybe you introduce students to a group, buy books to them and keep them in a context where there are a lot of material available, automatically reading will happen. So this is these ideas were very, very kind of romantically taken during this 1976, in the 1970s. After this, Frank Smith published this particular paper. He says reading can be learned only by reading. So reading cannot be taught; it can only be learned. He says every reader is an autonomous person. See, what is autonomy? See, I do in my own pace. That's what autonomy is. So every reader is an autonomous learner. So only reading happens to people who approach reading. So this is what is whole language approach. So if a teacher tries to teach reading, he or she is wasting his time. That becomes a meaningless activity in the classroom context. So this was kind of a very interesting idea during the 1970s. And slowly, see, any approach will undergo a change. So people, at least for the sake of contradiction, people need a different approach to say this approach doesn't work. That's how research happens. Okay, so Anu, next slide now. So this phonics approach came into existence. So I mean, I discussed just now about what phonics is. Anu, have you changed now? You're on mute, Anu. I am not on mute. Yeah, thank you, Anu. The next approach, which came in contradiction to this whole language approach, is phonics approach. Teachers believe that, see, of course, learning, reading happens that way, but why reading should not be taught? So what is wrong in teaching word by word or sound by sound or alphabet after alphabet? I mean, all these things came into existence, and they believe that reading can also be taught. That's the idea there. So reading is not always naturally learned. Reading is taught. So again, so moment this approach came into existence, so this was kind of a research motivation to many people. They started, for example, if you see the image there, SPOON. So that's how school is pronounced. So the pronunciation was given importance. The reading started from pronunciation. So people very strongly believe that if a child needs, has to improve in terms of reading, he or she should start with pronunciation, how every sound is uttered and how sound produces language. So this was called phonics approach. Fine. This was also kind of used for a long time, maybe for 2 decades. And then, so normally what happens? Anu, next time. Normally what happens? No, when one particular approach is being used for a long time, the approach which was brought in before this approach will find a way to say no. See, even my approach works. So such a context, maybe the whole language approach and the phonics approach, finally they came to a kind of an agreement that okay, fine. See, reading cannot be learned only by teaching. At the same time, reading all the time cannot be learned autonomously by introducing just materials to students. They won't read. They won't learn the skill of reading. So what this balanced literacy approach advocated was, it's a combination of whole language plus phonics. I think you can see the image there. Whole language plus phonics. So they said, okay, everything cannot be taught. At the same time, everything should not be left without teaching. So teaching and self-learning, maybe this automatic happening or natural happening should be there should be a balance where both these aspects interplay. So that is the time when this balanced literacy approach came into existence. I think still, I mean, this is very strong because it's a combination of previous approaches. Even now, we all maybe indirectly or directly in our classrooms we are practicing that. We want students to read on their own. Maybe Rodel is this content-based reading. I mean, you want students to come to the class with their own content, and reading is kind of moderated by the teacher. So all these different any methods or any techniques we use in our classroom will fall under this particular approach. That's called balanced literacy approach, where we have our own material. We try to teach. We let them learn. We do everything. We try everything in our classroom context. So I wanted to talk about these three approaches just to set a stage for us to learn. Okay, reading happens in this particular way. Still, there are people who very strongly believe in whole language approach. A lot of research papers even produced in the year 2021 on how reading naturally happens. So they talk about it's called concept approach, where you give the concept to the learner. For example, talk about this pandemic. Talk about pandemic to them, and stop where they need to start reading. So, moment when they get something interesting, children automatically go and try to surf the net to learn or read about what that particular aspect is. So, such papers are kind of produced these days. Maybe that's also an interesting thing. Now, sometimes when you take children to a context where you stop and there's no more information with the teacher, so automatically they move on to the sources which are available online or library, and they start reading. At the same time, in the classroom, we all are teachers. We should teach reading. So that we somehow I don't know, but we are put into a context where you are forced to teach reading in the classroom, because that's also a skill that is also in the syllabus. We have to teach reading. Maybe this combination is a kind of a very hybrid model that we all use in the classroom in today's next slide. The context. So I mean, now we'll see. Maybe after this, now we'll see what is this major difference between reading and comprehension. How is reading different from comprehension? Maybe I think the answers are rightly kept there, because in my side I had this next approach, but this is coming. Okay, anyway, it's okay. You can read and understand what reading and how it is different from comprehension. The researchers like Hans and Henford, they believe that reading is recognizing words and pronouncing them silently or with voice. We have two strategies. Sometimes it's called loud reading. Loud reading. I mean, what they do is mechanically identifying words and identifying the right pronunciation and doing it. I mean, performing it. That's what reading is. Comprehension is the next level, or the higher order skill. Next, it comes after reading, where we try to process what we read and construct meaning of what is being read. So that's what comprehension is. Why I try to differentiate at this point is reading is what is reading is skill, and what is born out of reading is comprehension. The next level, for example, we start recognizing words, we start understanding words, we start reading words, and slowly in course of reading, we try to construct meaning. So reading is not exactly a lower order skill, it's a higher order skill, whereas comprehension becomes the objective of reading. So I think we need to start our teaching or research from this point of view. How reading leads to comprehension. I think this is where our research has to focus. If at all reading researchers are very serious about that. Yes or no? Okay, with this, we'll stop discussing about reading, and let us talk about graphic organizers. This graphic organizers is not kind of a recently invented concept. It is there for almost past 2 decades. Even before that, I think it has a very strong foundation. This graphic organizers. One beautiful thing about this graphic organizer is most of the tools that we use for learning will be outdated after a while. Whereas this graphic organizers is being used by researchers at different levels. Every day there's a different idea attached to us graphic organizer. So that's the reason it still lives. Using graphic organizer in the context of teaching still lives. The idea still lives because this particular idea of using graphic organizers is being taken to different dimensions. There are different approaches to it. What exactly a graphic organizer is? Don't worry about the definition given there on the screen. I want audience to, if you feel graphic organizer is something beyond what is stated on the screen, I welcome such ideas from the audience. You can unmute and talk about your experience with graphic organizers. Is there anybody in the group that used graphic organizers in the process of teaching?
Yes, sir.
Can you please elaborate on how you use them? Maybe let me see how it is parallel
Yes,
to what
sir.
we want to discuss.
So naturally, the way I use graphic organizers is for brainstorming sessions, not
Okay.
exclusively for reading per se, because that's not my niche. But however, in classrooms, I have just tried graphic organizers for brainstorming sessions, for generating ideas, and it definitely helps to leverage ideas, especially some tools like mind map. So I use it for content-based instruction, especially for teaching literary theories. I break down the components into minor segments, presented in the form of mind map, and presented to the students so that they digest comprehensive information within a short span of time. So not exclusively in the context that you are referring, Dr. Sam, but in the context of teaching students of literature, I have used graphic organizers.
Great, sir. I think I think this is a new dimension to the idea of using graphic organizers.
Thank you, sir.
Because see, as and when this, I think we need to discuss about the idea that comes to us right now. See, Vijay said you're using it in a literature classroom.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah. For example, I have used that in a language classroom. So I think we need to understand the difference between using graphic organizers for teaching literature, or maybe analyzing literary theories, as you rightly mentioned, and how it is different from using graphic organizers to teach reading or teach any skill for that matter in a language classroom. So these are two different areas for us to venture into. Vijay sir, can you share an experience? Okay, how you introduce graphic organizers to the students? Did you tell what graphic organizers to them, or maybe you just introduce mind map?
Yeah.
How did you
So
introduce this
yeah,
concept?
what I do is, sir, actually I just make it as a part of my presentation. For example, whenever I design my PowerPoint slides, I use the design principle of having a lot of visual images rather than having content there. So I actually don't teach them what graphic organizers are, whereas based on the learning outcomes I set for a particular class. For instance, if it's a theory of phenomenology, I just because it's quite abstract and abstruse components, I break it into minor segments and look at some free tools, as I said, like mind mapping tools, which I just download, or something which are like infographics, and I just break all the components and show them, and it helps me. It saves a lot of my time in the board work. So I just can show the slides, and it saves a lot of my time when I explain the concept. So I actually don't describe what graphic organizers are, but I do it as a part of my PowerPoint design.
Okay.
So I don't explicitly tell them what graphic organizers are.
Now, I asked you this question because to let you know there's an avenue brightly open in front of you. Because I've been into this research for a while, studying about graphic organizers and things like that. I've not seen a paper where a literature teacher is using graphic organizers for dissemination purposes or deliberation purposes. I think you need to do a survey, conduct a survey amidst your students where you use graphic organizers to get to know the impact of it initially. And I think this will be a starting point. If you can come out with a paper on using this for dissemination or deliberation of literary information, I think that will be a starting point of a new research avenue.
Thank you very much, sir, for that.
Great.
Maybe I'll just give my shot at it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Sometimes, we teachers, we become very good teachers in the class, and we keep all our ideas inside the class. We don't bring it out of the class. And there's a very interesting, again, a very old idea of research called action research. Yeah. Sometimes we do certain things in the class, it works for us, and we're very happy that it worked, and we get satisfied there. No, so we must take it beyond our classrooms and publish it, and so that others can practice it and tell us how it worked. I think that's every action research is a paved way for great research. For example, when if you talk to people like Rama Matthew, Delhi University, she says, see, every small thing I experienced during my teaching, which I neglected, went for a 6. She said, she used to have a book where she just writes down all ideas that she thinks that might work in the class. Now all the research are based on those ideas she has written down in the class. So as far as an English teacher is concerned, maybe English class are concerned, research is born inside the classroom. Sometimes it goes unnoticed. I think this is one area which you just try to browse and see. You will have such papers recently published, maybe after 2019 and 20. There are no old papers where literary theories were taught using graphic organizers, or at least as a support. Or I'm going to talk about using graphic organizers in 3 different layers. Maybe I think then you can attach your ideas to it. Maybe see how it might work. Thank you, Vijay, for that input.
Thank you, sir.
Anu, shall we move on? Yeah. So benefits of graphic organizers. I think I had a different kind of an image. I don't know. I see all small text on the screen. Anyway, those text we'll try to understand. Anyway, I thought of discussing this. Benefits of graphic organizers one by one. Anyway, now we'll take the first point. It motivates learners to become designers. So this is kind of a research term now. Maybe what a teacher does in the classroom. Okay, we go into the classroom and we say, okay, I give you a text. Maybe this is kind of what to say. Maybe a text that you have to read in this particular session. The story doesn't end there. And what we, as a teacher, what we do is we give them a graphic organizer, or we ask them to come out with a graphic organizer. So indirectly, we are motivating learners to become designers. Sometimes we do it with realization, or sometimes we believe that we're teaching reading and we're doing an activity, but the implication, this pedagogical implication that happens in the classroom is they become designers. So designing is a higher order skill. That too, designing a text into an image is a higher order skill. So this is a very important research-based benefit of using graphic organizers in the class. I think this can be measured and tapped. Maybe most of the time now, when it comes to publication or research, we should know how to measure our ideas. Measuring is very important, and sometimes it's a problematic area for most of us being English teachers. So this motivation in terms of making a learner into a designer is a measurable entity. I think maybe we'll talk about tools a little later, if possible, if time permits, or else this is one of the very important benefits of using graphic organizers in the class. The second thing is it enables channel conversion. Channel conversion is a different area of research. Okay, for example, what is a channel conversion? Maybe in a very few simple sentences, let me try to explain what is channel conversion. You take, for example, you take a poem to the class. Maybe a poem on a very, very simple topic. There's a very simple 10-line poem. Anu, I think you're reading your chat, right? I think there's a lot of things coming on the chat. Anyway, it's fine. Channel conversion is, you take a poem, when you come out of the class, you have a different material, different genre of material of the same poem. Maybe a different poem produced on that particular poem, or maybe a prose explanation of that poem. Maybe we come out with different content or different genres of that particular material. For example, I take a newspaper article, a newspaper feature on maybe pandemic, for example, because of this proximity. Maybe it's a newspaper article. Maybe when I come out of it, maybe I'll come out with a story with characters designed by the student. That's what is called channel conversion. Understanding becomes a very important aspect of channel conversion. A prose text in the class, maybe graphic organizers enable students to introduce characters and create that into a different genre. So that's what is another very important area of research. I think we can explore this. People with this kind of intention or mindset can explore how this can be a research area, how graphic organizers can be used in a classroom to enable or to initiate channel conversion. That can be a different, very interesting area of research. The next benefit is serves as a scaffold. This is most of the time we teach in a heterogeneous classroom. We don't have students of the same caliber. So what we do is we have to sometimes pitch a little high, or we have to bring ourselves a little low. So this is what is called a scaffold. We enable this graphic organizers as a scaffold on which students can have a closer look on the content. Generally, scaffolds are used while building structures. So what is a kind of very basic use of a scaffold? It takes the employee or the worker very close to the work. For example, when a person paints a wall, he builds the scaffold, he stands on the scaffold and paints the wall. So it will be easy for him to understand because the work is very close to him. Likewise, when in course of reading, the reading component is kept in front of the learner. Maybe these scaffolds will help them go close to the content and understand. So the scaffolds, okay, fine. A lot of different scaffolding tools. Graphic Organizer is one of the tools that takes learner close to the material. So that's what I mean by serves as a scaffold. The last but one motivation benefit I would like to discuss is motivates the students with learning disabilities. Actually, this is based on a research. I recently read a paper where a person argues that we encounter students with learning disabilities. For example, as far as reading is concerned, we have students who cannot connect words or connect sentences or understand transitions. We have people with different kinds of disabilities. So this graphic organizers is trying. I think this particular researcher argues that it motivates students with learning disabilities. When you disseminate information graphically, they're able to understand better than reading it generally. So general reading is causing them problem, whereas the problem is solved when a graphic organizer is introduced. That's the crux of the paper that I read recently. Maybe I've given the paper maybe in the last slide. I think you can refer to those papers if you're very serious about doing research on this particular aspect. The last benefit that I thought of discussing in this session is initiate brainstorming. I think before I went, we moved on to this slide. I think Vijay sir is using that in the class. Graphic organizers are used in the class to initiate brainstorming. What exactly this brainstorming is, why it is called brainstorming? We have sessions like idea creation sessions or idea sharing sessions. What is this brainstorming? Since we have the word brain in it, how do we use brain for this? Can someone tell me what exactly the brainstorming is? I ask this question because sometimes all these words are very familiar words, commonly used words. When you go deep into the word, defining the word becomes a problem. What exactly brainstorming is? Maybe teachers might understand. Okay, brainstorming is a session where students create ideas or generate ideas. Okay, that's the impact or effect of brainstorming. But what exactly brainstorming is? Reading researchers see brainstorming differently. What they say, we all have kind of an inbuilt structure or inbuilt program called schema or schemata. Schemata is singular, schema is plural. So how the schema works is that's an interface between your memory and your current requirement of information. For example, maybe we'll do a very, very simple activity. For example, if I say, who's your favorite actor or actress? The moment this question is asked, I'm very sure all these 90 people in the session would have got an image in front of you, whoever it is. The person would have been wearing a nice dress color. You can even tell the color of the dress of the person or the image that you got in front of you. So where does this image come from? So this is where the schema works. See, human brain is designed to kind of observe everything that it sees. That's the strength of a brain. The data capacity is kind of unlimited as far as human brain is concerned. The problem is it captures all the information. It is there somewhere. It is like a folder which is not named. Yeah, sometimes we have a folder in our system. It will not have any name. It will be still called new folder bracket 1 or 2. When you open that, you'll find a lot of interesting stuff that you have created. Likewise, your brain will observe a lot of things because you don't kind of tell your brain to give that information often. It will be stored in a folder which is unnamed. The schema is kind of a person. Sometimes you have the search button, right? For a system, we open that folder, we don't know where that particular file is. So we go to this quick search and we'll type the name or a word associated with that particular file. Moment you type, you'll get a list of files with that particular name or files that deals with that particular term. I think that's how a system works. Exactly, our brain also works. The moment a question is put to a student or put to us, a schema becomes very active. It goes to the brain repository and tries to bring whatever information that is available in the brain. So this process is called brainstorming. So brainstorming needs an initiation. Normally what we do, we put students into groups and we give them a topic and ask them to brainstorm. So they discuss. they discuss. In course of discussion, what happens, there will be a lot of new words that comes. So every child will activate his or her schema. The schema goes to the brain and brings all the information from the brain and disseminates that in the class. That's what exactly brainstorming is. So here, initiate brainstorming. See, okay, when you brainstorm, how do you record? Sometimes, no, our teachers used to say, have a rough paper, write down the points one by one. That's normally we ask the students to take kind of translate their brainstorm points on a sheet of paper. So instead of on a sheet of paper, if you give them a graphic organizer, they can organize their ideas. There will be a uniformity. There will be they can easily retrieve information from whatever they brainstorm. So this is what I mean by initiate brainstorming in the class. So brainstorming itself is a very interesting research area. So I request participants to focus on the word schema and read a lot of interesting articles published recently on schema. I think we'll have to schema and this NLP, neuro linguistic programming, closely related. People who want to do that kind of a research can refer to schema based papers, so that will give you a lot of inputs. Yeah, so we'll move on. Anu, can we go to the next page? Yeah, from these slides, I thought of discussing about different types of graphic organizers. I'm using the word graphic organizer again and again, but what is that? People who have used it, fine, but people who haven't used that, I think we have different kinds of graphic organizers. This is what you see is called a persuasion map. Sometimes, we have a problem. This can be used at the personal level and also at the learning level. I'll tell you what the difference is. We have a problem, for example, to buy a house in Chennai or not, to buy a flat in Chennai or not. That's what we claim. So maybe this organizer will help us to understand what is in our brain very, very clearly. Sometimes, maybe when someone says, okay, it's good to buy a house, we feel like buying a house. But at the same time, after seeing this flood and everything, buying a house in Chennai is always risky. So all these ideas will disturb our processing of information. The same thing happens to our students in the classroom. So to understand what exactly my idea is, sometimes we ourselves will not be clear about our ideas. So this persuasion map will persuade us, okay, is my claim right or wrong? Should I continue with my claim, or should I drop it at some one point of time? So if you can use this graphic organizers to organize your ideas or organize your claim, and your ideas related to your claim, so you'll get a very interesting conclusion. So I use this in a class where we have problems. I give them a problem. For example, I'll say this online learning is a kind of a very, very bad trend we have set to ourselves. Maybe that's a problem. No, that's my claim. So in course of the session, people read different materials and they try to bring a lot of supporting details, and they try to see whether my claim is right or wrong, to what extent my claim is right or it's totally wrong. So they do all these kinds of classifications using this particular graphic organizer. This is called a persuasion map. Anu, you can quickly go next. Next is called a sequence chart. I think we all have used it. Maybe I think most of us teach this process description in the class. So we give them a process and ask our children to kind of describe it. Okay, this is a story map. Maybe people say this is an elementary graphic organizer, but this can be used even at the tertiary level. I've tried in a couple of maybe we ask students to read novels, read short stories, that will improve your reading skills. Okay, what they're supposed to do in course of reading, because they're not reading for pleasure alone, they're reading to improve the reading skills. There are two ways of reading. Okay, person who knows already what reading is, the person will read on his own. They're called avid readers. Avid readers, when you not tell them, they read whatever comes in front of them. That's a different story. Whereas when you motivate a person to read, to improve his reading skills, you need to give some kind of a channel converting tool. For example, the story map will be a very interesting channel conversion. Either if it is a very simple short story or a huge novel, they can try. This mind map can be used allied to what they read. So this will help them to understand better. So reading will be kind of comfortable task for them. So this can be used even at the tertiary level. Nothing wrong. There's nothing called very elementary or high. You can use it in your own ways. Yeah, Anu, we can move on. So I think this we all have used, this KWL chart. The moment you, for example, you give them a reading comprehension passage, this can be used as a pre-reading task. So you just give them a topic. Okay, for example, we're going to talk about this Omicron. Okay, before you give them the information, let the children try to complete this particular graphic organizer. It's called KWL chart. What they know about the topic and what has to be read and what they have learned. Maybe what they know, they can do it before they read the text, and maybe say what they want to know, they can make a note of it, and then they can after K and W they can go they can move on to the text what they are supposed to read, and they, in course of reading, okay, they'll see whether this what I want to know is getting satisfied. Is the text satisfying that particular column with the point they have noted on the column, and then after you read the text, you can fill this what I have learned. So this is a very interesting thing. No? Maybe in course of reading, maybe after this you can give them any number of questions to answer. This can be a reading comprehension task also. But in course of reading a passage, pre-reading, while reading, and post-reading. So these are the stages we normally discuss. So this graphic organizer can be used from that point of view. I know we can move on. Yeah, this is a very interesting. Sir spoke about mind maps. This is one very interesting tool that people are already using now. There is a software called Free Mind software. I think most of you would have used that. It's called Free Mind software. It's free. The latest version is freely available. You can download it. It will take only 10 minutes to download. Basically that tool is meant for creating mind maps. And you can create mind maps, and you can download that mind maps in whatever format you want, maybe as a PDF form or an image or whatever. This is maybe learning maps are, for example, I want to learn something new. For example, we are talking about reading research. The reading research can be the central idea. You see the central idea as topic there, since it's a format. You can put your topic that you want to learn or you have decided to research on as a central idea, and start branching. It's called nodding out. What all these colors are different knots. You can go about. This can be done in course or before, you just to know what you know about the topic, or maybe after a while, after reading for a while, and then you can see to what extent you have developed in terms of the topic. Maybe after a research area, okay, what is your finding? You can use this learning map at different levels. Anyway, move on. So these are different kinds of, this is a vocabulary organizer. This seems to be very simple, but this is one of the very effective organizers that has worked for me. Maybe what I do is every day I introduce a new word. Sometimes I introduce my own words. They're called undictionaried words. I call them undictionaried words. Just to make them curious to know, okay, what that word. I'll just give a stupid word like Coca-Cola as a central idea, and I'll ask them to somehow fill this organizer. So they'll try to say, I'll say this can be a coined term also, because I've referred to different languages to coin this term. I'll give some kind of background information. So they do a web search and they try to get information close to that particular expression, which never existed. So in course of doing that, they come out with different words. So that is what my objective is. So without any context, just motivate them to find out words. So they try to browse different sources, indulge in web quest, and come out with different kinds of words to understand the stupid word what I've given. Maybe in the end of the session, I'll say that's a stupid word. There's no such word. But in the boxes, they would have written at least 10 words each. So maybe vocabulary creation concept. Maybe you can use this organizers there. Yes, Anu, we can move on. Yeah, I think I will stop here. This is I call this research planner. Maybe people on the initial stages of the research, you can use this organizer to plan your research. Maybe it's a very simple looking planner. Maybe you can maybe make it complex based on your research. Maybe how you want to classify. Maybe you can have maybe different columns and other things. Maybe this sounds kind of very known in the current day context, but people who are on the very beginning stage of your research, I think this planner will help you out to focus. This has helped me. Maybe I didn't use a similar looking planner. Maybe I used an Excel sheet to create my plan and did something anyway. That's over. But at this point of time, if maybe people who take research seriously at the initial stages, please try to use this particular planner. It will definitely help you out to focus on your research. Sometimes, the major problem we all face in terms of performing our research is digressions. We'll start with one particular area and we digress into too many things. Finally, after a year or two, we'll come back to the same point what we wanted to do with research. So we waste 2 years in course because we lack a plan. So this planner at the initial stage of it will definitely help you to focus and keep. Maybe at least it will tell you after a very short period that this will work or not work, your area from a research point. Anyway, so this is also a graphic organizer. Anyway, Anu, can you move on? Yeah. This is a very interesting. This is called cause and effect organizer, but I used to call this a fishbone organizer because it looks like that. No? It looks like it. I mean, we already have a fishbone organizer. So it's not only. I mean, I called it cause and effect organizer, but this can be used for different purposes. You can also call this a fact and opinion organizer. Maybe give them a passage, ask students to identify facts and opinion in the passage. So they can use this organizers to fill the fact and opinion and cause and effect. Wherever, for example, you have contradictions, there are an idea, sometimes they talk for it and against it in certain writings. So when you want students to decode that particular information, you can give this organizer, so it will help them to understand the passage better from that point of view. Maybe either cause and effect or fact and opinion or things like that. Anyway, yeah. So these are certain. I mean, this is from a paper. So you can use these links to see Canva. I think most of us are using for creating posters or kind of certificates. I think Canva is used there, but Canva also has very interesting graphic organizing patterns. For example, what I do is I give a small paragraph about a girl, maybe who has won a prize or something, and who is from a very simple background, but she's able to achieve something. And I'll ask my students to create posters. So unless they read the passage and clearly understand the passage, they cannot create the poster. They'll have to go browse for that particular girl in the internet and get the image of the girl. Use the girl as a poster. Maybe I'll ask, okay, we're going to invite that girl as a chief guest to our particular college, wherever you work. Okay, now you read the information and try to create a poster. So automatically the poster becomes a graphic organizer. They read the text. Again, channel conversion. They convert the plain text into a poster. Channel conversion, they convert. So in course of doing that, they understand, they reread the text, they go focus, they do skim, they scan, they do all these kinds of strategies indirectly in course of preparing the poster, and that becomes an excellent graphic organizer for them to understand the text better. Likewise, these are some of the very interesting. I think I want you to go and see for yourself. You know, there are a lot of freely available websites where they give you a lot of designs. So these websites, in some of the websites you can click on the graphic organizer, and if you want to customize it for your need, maybe you want to use it in a different context, so it lets you to customize also. For example, this graphicorganizer.net, we have a lot of graphic organizers in that particular website where you need not use it as it is. You can download it and you can convert it. You can customize it to your own way and you can use. So, these are some. Maybe I thought this will help you, people who are very serious in terms of doing research in terms of this. This might help you to get the basic ideas in terms of graphic organizers, and you'll also understand what are the graphic organizers that are already available. Sometimes, I want people to pay attention to this particular point. I have encountered this problem. When you want to publish a paper, if you use existing graphic organizer, and for example, for writing or reading or whatever, if you use existing graphic organizers and prove that this particular thing works, some of the journals, they don't accept your paper because they say you have used an existing graphic organizer. I wrote a paper for writing and it came back to me saying these organizers are already existing. Maybe there's nothing new for our readers, or readership is not satisfied. So you'll get such comments from the reviewers. So what I suggest is, always when you want to use any kind of image for your research, it might be graphic organizers or concept mapping or whatever, I want you to customize it, change it to your requirement, and you make that very clearly visible in your paper, saying that, okay, this particular graphic organizer was designed by the researcher to suit this particular need. You get the point? So this will help you to publish your paper easily. But if you use any kind of image, if it is not processed and customized, getting that paper published in good journals is a very difficult task. So people who are in that particular stage, please make note of this particular idea. Anyway, we can move on now. Yeah, I know. It's already 7:35. I'll take 5 more minutes and I'll finish. And if you have any questions, I can answer. Or else we can close. I was talking when Vijay sir mentioned about using graphic organizers. I mentioned layers of using graphic organizers. The first thing, if a person is very serious about using graphic organizers for teaching or for research, I think this understanding is very, very important. Layer 1 is called organizing information, layer 2 is decoding information, and layer 3 is creating information. First thing, okay, maybe in a class, if you want to use a graphic organizer, initially it can be used for organizing information. You have a long text here with a lot of difficult words, difficult context for people to understand. So the layer 1 organizers will help students to organize information in a way that they can understand. So every student may not be kind of competent enough to understand what is written. Maybe if you convert that into a graphic organizer, just if you reorganize it in a way that it is approachable. So such organizers are called layer 1 organizers. They are used predominantly for organizing information, not for learning. The layer 2 organizers is to decode information. What is decoding? For example, you read a text, you understand something in a text. For example, you read literary theory and you have your own understanding. Okay, I understand this particular idea when I read this passage or paragraph or whatever. So translating that into a graphic organizer, that layer is called decoding information. You read and you decode information, and there should be one kind of organizing, maybe organizer, where you try to organize or arrange your ideas in one particular way, either in a progressive way or a chronological way, whatever demands, whatever that particular idea demands. For example, how I use this now, for example, what I do is, we take one practice I strictly follow is all the reading text I use in my classroom are either physics or chemistry or mechanical engineering or EC engineering. Nothing to do with the stories or nothing to do with what happens in restaurant. Maybe sometimes I use that also, maybe when I teach this unfocused reading. When it comes to focused specific reading, we use only technical text. So what happens is, okay, they've encountered the same text in a physics classroom from a different point of view. So they took all the important definitions or important sentences and they understood that and they believed that, okay, this is what reading is. So my responsibility is to tell them, no, see, this particular text can lend itself to do beyond just this understanding. So they'll have to go beyond what they've already understood in the physics class using the same text, and they have to decode that for better understanding. So in this context, layer 2 graphic organizers will be of great help to you. Maybe teachers will have to do a little bit of homework here. Maybe you have to read the text beforehand. If there are certain things which you don't understand, you talk to a physics teacher and get to know what that exactly is. So after getting to know the text, you have to create certain graphic organizer which students can ready-made use for the first time. Maybe if a student feels, sir, I want to use a different organizer, this I designed, very good. Maybe you can let students do that also. Yeah. So that's what is called layer 2 organizers, where decoding information is taking place or will take place. Okay. The third is layer 3. It's called creating information. Sometimes we don't have any text to read. I have a lot of ideas in my mind. I would like to create a text, either writing a text. So most of the researchers, this is where we are. We'll have a lot of ideas in our mind. When it comes to writing, that's where the problem is. So this layer 3 graphic organizers can be used by researchers who are writing papers. Specifically, it can be used by students also, but let us not go into that. Let us talk about researchers who are trying to write a paper with all the data you have collected, all the kind of findings you have. Now you need to put all those findings in one particular shape and write a paper. So that is where you create information. So there are graphic organizers that can be used maybe for creating information. I was talking about this FreeMind software where you can create different notes. Maybe open the software, you have your central idea, you're going to write a paper on reading research, okay, that becomes central idea. And what is your first step? What is your first idea? So initially try to branch them out into different knots, and that will give you a clear visibility of what is there in your mind. And maybe next step is you can delete the knots which you think it is not required for that particular paper in the next step. And then finally you will get a clearly drawn graphic organizer which will tell you, okay, what is your focus and what you would like to translate into a research paper. So graphic organizers can be used in 3 different layers. One is organizing information, basic level, and decoding to understand already written text. And third layer is if you have ideas, how to organize your ideas into a text. So these are the 3 layers that you can use graphic organizers. Next slide quickly. I have some papers there. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. So these are some of the, I think it's very minute there. Okay, these are some of the papers which that's one of my papers where I use graphic organizers for reading. These are the school level. So maybe now I'm trying to do the same thing in the college level. Yeah, there are a lot of papers in progress. But these are some certain papers. One good thing about these papers does not confuse you. So these are freely available in the net. Google Scholar has all these papers, or if you have ResearchGate login, you can download the papers from there. Or else there are a lot of other websites that you can download these papers free of cost. You read the paper in this particular order. You see that order, no, on which you read the papers. If people you're very serious about doing research, understanding what graphic organizers are at the research level, please read these papers at this particular order. You'll understand, and how this will help you in terms of, okay, if at all I have ideas in terms of graphic organizers, how to go about doing a research in terms of that. If I'm doing a research, for example, in Pondicherry University, there's a professor who's deep into it, and I'm in touch with him. His idea is to use graphic organizer not for understanding purpose. He wants what his area of research is. He wants to use graphic organizer as a mental model. So you don't wait for anyone to give you a graphic organizer to understand. The moment you see a text, it's like a robot. Your mind will see the text already organized, because you have a mental organizer. So that will organize the text and shows things in one particular way. So that's his area, very interesting area. I thought, I should talk to him. Maybe slowly we are discussing, and we are in the way. So what I mean to say is, okay, these are certain papers. If you read, you'll understand what is graphic organizer and how to take graphic organizer to the research level without any confusion. So I think I'm done with my presentation as such. So now, Anu, if there are any questions in the chat, or if people want to ask any questions, they can ask. If we have time.
Dear sir, I'm Rahul from Aura here. Sir, before we open the question and answer session, there had been a lot of queries in the chat box.
Okay.
Participants wanted you to share the PPT. So with your permission, sir.
PPT I've already sent to Anu. If she can do anything with the PowerPoint. No problem.
Yes, sir. I will share it with them, sir. Definitely, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I will share. Participants, you have any questions? Okay, a question was posted in Q&A. I'm a PhD research scholar. Okay, there has been so much of research on LSRW skills. Do you feel that research on reading is exhausted, or are there still niche areas to explore?
Let me be frank with you, Masi. Maybe I started this research, reading research, a decade ago, after my MPhil. So the problem is, there are different levels or different layers of research taking place in terms of reading, or any skill for that matter. The problem is, if you try to start your research after reading a paper, that's where the problem starts, because you'll be replicating what the researcher has to say. For example, you read a paper, you take a paper on reading, which is already published, recently published, and you read the paper, and there are a lot of ideas discussed there. And if you want to do a research based on your understanding of the paper, I think what you're doing is wrong. Then you will have all this problem, because the idea is already discussed there. Maybe you'll be replicating what the researcher has done. Maybe you'll give a dimension to it. That's a different story. What I would say is, maybe as teachers, or maybe what is your experience of reading? Maybe if you want to take a problem that you face in terms of reading, I think a research problem should start based on our experience. Maybe after you have a problem, after you venture into a problem for a while, then you can do a literature review on what is already existing on the web. So if you see the volume of paper being published, volume of information being disseminated in seminars, webinars, and research areas, you'll feel this. No, there are a lot of research already taken place. What is there for me in this? So please, the scholar who asked this question, if you're very serious in terms of research, start a research from the problem that you have faced. If you're a teacher, or you have faced, when you are a student.
Okay. So there's another question. I'm a PhD research scholar doing ELT. This is Dharani. I am going to do thesis in reading skills. Can you please give your suggestions on reading skills title for my thesis? Any new title? Is SQ3R technique old?
See, Dharani, that's a fine. I mean, I what to say? I enjoy your innocence, I should say. So you want a title for your research. Dharani, keep that as an extreme step, a last step. Getting a title for your research. If you're in the very initial stages of your research, don't worry about your title. Think of an area. That's why every university will ask you to go kind of a wide topic. Maybe we'll see. Okay, initially we'll think, okay, I'm going to do a research on reading, everything in terms of reading in the world. That will be our mindset when you start. But in course of time, you'll understand the problem and you'll focus on one particular problem. That's how research ends. That's how we all do research. Dharani, one thing. Okay, since you are worried about a topic, so I'll tell you there's something called a headword approach to writing titles. See, what is your problem? What problem in terms of reading you're focusing in your research? That will be your first headword. And maybe to what level you're pitching the problem, at the tertiary level or school level, even the school level, the high school level or primary level. So that will be your second headword. So your problem area, first headword. Where do you pitch the problem, second headword? What is the existing theory that you would like to use in your research? That will be the third headword. Try to identify these three aspects of your research and then try to write a title. I think you'll write a suitable title. Your title should have all the headwords of your incorporation. One, the problem; two, the level you pitch; three, the theory or maybe it may not be theory all the time, maybe a method or technique, whatever you incorporate for your research. So after you get these three information, maybe then you can start writing your title. Then I think you'll have a logical title. Hope I answered your question, Darren.
Yeah.
Participants, any more questions? So,
yeah, I think people are very tired.
I think.
So, before you wind up, Parana and Rahul, can I make some quick comments?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. Yes, Dr. Praveen Sam, it was such a fine presentation. I know, as I said, although my niche is not on reading and graphic organizers, you actually walked us through all the approaches. It was such a fine and fluid presentation. And actually, it was so research-based. I was actually wondering when you started the presentation because, in fact, I too approached reading as a kind of an implicit approach rather than a kind of an explicit approach to reading. But you, as I said, walked us brilliantly through research-based strategies on the whole language approach and the balanced literary-based approach. And you just gave a plethora of approaches and beautifully related with graphic organizers in order to lead to the maximum learning outcomes. So I find your calibrated suggestion on using this kind of graphic organizer in a literature classroom as a niche area of research. So I take that as one of a fine pointers for my future projects or research for that matter. And especially another highlight of your presentation I thoroughly enjoyed is your remark on how you can use graphic organizers for learning disability studies, especially for people who are venturing into reading. I think disability study is kind of a socially impactful research design. So I really am thankful for that wonderful comment on how you can use graphic organizers for disability studies in order to lead to socially impactful design per se. And then the schema as a kind of a metacognitive approach for triggering your ideas or scaffolding. I find that so intriguing. Probably these subtle layers of organizing information that you talked about, because I use graphic organizers I was presuming that we use it for actually generating ideas and for having that kind of brainstorming. But your insight on the subtle layers was truly insightful and very much research based. So I'm really there's a lot of take home message, I believe, for the entire audience here, and it was truly insightful, Dr. Praveen Sam. Thank you for that fine fluid presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning it, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anbalagan, I think you had raised your hand. Anbalagan? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, Rahul. Thank you.
Yes. Praveen sir, thank you for your wonderful insight into the topic. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. And before I do on with the task given for me, sir, I do have a doubt. I hope I can ask you a doubt right now.
Please go
Yes.
on, sir.
So actually, now you shared about the vocabulary organizers. So if I'm right, that's the kind of a model of Fryer's model, if I'm right. So bringing in the Fryer's model, or there are various approaches like that of raft approach. So bringing in these kind of different kind of approaches in order to teach the students regarding the language. So any kind of approaches, could it be brought under the graphic organizers? Could it be done?
Sir, if I understand the question right, since you took an example of vocabulary, so I thought of answering a question along those lines. See, now the research on learning vocabulary is kind of not outdated, but there are a lot of research already taken place.
Mhm.
Now we are in a spectrum where vocabulary retention is playing a vital role. That is how to retain the words we learn. Okay, we all learn different words, but what volume of words we retain for our general use or future use. So maybe as teachers, I think that is the focus today. So graphic organizers helps you to basically learn vocabulary and also retain it. What researchers say is when you meddle with a word, for example, word becomes vocabulary when you use it in different contexts. That's a general distinction between a word and a vocabulary. For example, if you use it in a literary sense, it becomes diction. So that's how they classify vocabulary. So as far as this question is concerned, as an approach, maybe you can focus on how the learned word is retained. Maybe if you can come out with an approach to cater to that particular need. The problem is overflow of information. During our days in the school, we'll have one textbook with limited words as glossary, so we were able to read and retain it. But today, a child, major problem is overflow of information. Teachers, books, internet, mobile, WhatsApp, they get information from all these sources. The problem is they read, they understand, but the retention is a problem. By the time their brain processes that particular information, that particular word, they get 100 different words. So the problem is retention. The child is not able to retain the word he or she has encountered. Maybe if you talk about the same word after a week, they'll show as if they remember the word, they'll not be in a position to talk about the word. Maybe after a month, the word will become new to them. So that's the problem. So an approach that if you can come out with an approach which will help them to retain the word, initially decide on the word that they need, not all the words, and then retain those words for whatever purpose they would use it in the future. That would be an excellent approach that we can think of as of now, so maybe currently. This from my point of view, maybe there are different ideas. I think this will be an excellent kind of action research that we can do.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Ma'am, shall I? So, sir, as Digma says, sir, it was a very wonderful one listening to you, sir, and we could actually gather a lot of information from your very thoughtful speech on about the reading approaches and things like that, because I'm sure all English teachers over here will agree with me that LSRW is something integrated, but often we just try to forget about the reading skill, and we try to say it is so passive, and probably we don't pay much attention to the passive skills as we do with that of speaking and writing. So probably this talk on the reading approaches, I'm sure, sir, it would have opened up the mindset of many participants over here, including me. So thanks for that wonderful presentations on the various approaches of reading. And sir, because all teachers would have been under a kind of a mindset that reading and comprehension were so synchronous, but thanks for bringing a kind of a distinction between reading and the so-called comprehension. You rightly quoted that reading is a skill, and whereas comprehension is a process. So thanks for bringing and enlightening on that distinction. And even so, thanks for a wonderful, broad, a very detailed talk on the various benefits of graphic organizers. And I'm sure it would have been very useful and very thought-provoking for all the participants who took part in this one. So once again, thank you, sir, for joining with us and sharing your valuable information in the midst of your busy schedule. So on behalf of ARA, we thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We're looking forward to having you with us for more sessions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, participants, I thought I was a little fast, my pace was a little fast, because within 1 hour, talking about everything is a very big task for us. So making you understand is another problem.
No, sir, you did a great justice. You did a great justice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Aruna, for helping.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
In fact, Aruna, in terms of this, she was one who took up this dyslexic research even 10 years back, 10, 15 years back. I think she was working,
Yes.
she was a master in that.
2010.
Almost 10, 11 years back, right? So how's your